EVE Online's new expansion is going about as well as you might expect. Hi, I'm Amoni Panala, and this is my update to my analysis of Equinox post-expansion release. A week out from the initial release, and CCP announced that they would be delaying the second phase of the expansion's rollout. This was supposed to be when Sovereignty Hubs, or Sov Hubs, could be online in the new Sovereignty state. The feedback CCP was getting from basically everyone was that Equinox sucked ass. The problem stemmed largely from the scarcity of resources. While it is true that scarcity was an intentional design choice meant to force players to get into more frequent conflicts over resources, the math on those resources was such that entire systems were unusable or bricked, and other systems were only ever going to be able to sustain the lowest tier of either mining or crabbing. Now they say that the second phase will happen a week later than originally planned, and I suspect that when CCP turns everything on, it will be an absolute shit show. On some level, this expansion feels like they spent a lot of time on everything but the numbers. The skyhooks look amazing, and the theft mechanics that will hopefully be the engine of several small skirmishes for the foreseeable future work really well. The problem is that in addition to several systems being rendered almost entirely useless and therefore a major chore for anyone who has to try to defend them, the problem can be exemplified in the way skyhooks work currently. Skyhooks is easy, and you have a 10-minute window to respond before the orbital skyhook silo, which holds the resources, has been depleted by theft. This doesn't work with the already existing ESS banks for a few different reasons. The first and primary reason is that you don't get the full amount from robbing the bank. Had they designed skyhooks the same way, it might have encouraged people not to steal from their own skyhooks. As it stands, skyhooks are not likely to have motherlode levels of resources in the silo. Any alliance worth their salt is going to steal from their own skyhook well before that happens. In other news, the new build of Vanguard has released. Vanguard is the first-person extraction shooter set in the same universe as EVE Online. Each month there is a window of time where EVE Online players can participate in the alpha testing phase if they are Omega clones. This month was a big release as CCP unveiled a new map called Solstice. This beautiful jungle environment is the first time since alpha testing began, about 6 months ago, that players have seen anything other than the gray, lifeless, and uninspiring environment of Carrion, a crash site in the Genesis region of New Eden. The problems with Vanguard feel a lot like the problems with Equinox. I found this build of Vanguard to be much the same as before. The game just isn't fun. It's supposed to be a squad-based extraction shooter where you and a couple friends squad up to complete contracts before extracting safely while fighting off other squads who are also trying to complete contracts. In reality, the mechanics around squatting up are clumsy and difficult to use. I've never been able to get them to work, though I know plenty of others have, so I'm not sure if I'm doing something wrong or if I've got a bug. The fact that I can't tell is part of the problem. Vanguard's UI is an absolute mess. The UI is my biggest complaint throughout, but I'll return to that in a little bit. Players can also join a queue to squad up with 2 other random players in queue, but that hasn't worked since the second month of playtesting for me. It's not even a question of bad UI or design or player error. I push the join squad button and the game can't find any players to match me with. I've tried doing this in multiple time zones just in case there was an exceptionally low player count in one time zone or another, but across all of them I haven't been able to squad up. What ends up happening then is that I end up going in there by myself and facing off against actual squads of 3 who can easily outflank me. On top of that, there are groups of NPC enemies to shoot, but the difficulty is obviously tuned for squads of 3, which means that a lone war clone is going to eat shit. Vanguard is a weird game. Much of your time on the ground is spent collecting resources and running around the map, looking for a switch to flip, a panel to open, a dead drop to turn in a specific item for a contract. Instead of finding ammunition littered throughout the map, players have to open a crafting menu and build their ammo using the same resources they need to build contract-specific items. In fact, just about everything the player needs has to be crafted using materials found scattered across the map. It feels a bit like if Minecraft meets Apex Legends, if both of those games were awful. As I said, the UI for this game is a mess, and it's the thing that I think makes getting into Vanguard a non-starter. I can't see anyone who likes first-person shooters, extraction shooters, or crafting games for that matter, being able to enjoy this game, because the UI is such a goddamn nightmare. It took me a while to realize, but while recording myself playing this game, I realized the design for the UI is intended to let players build everything they need without ever having to stop moving or go to something like a workbench in other crafting mechanics in other games, right? In principle, that's a neat way of keeping the game moving, so it feels more fast-paced and the action never stops. In reality, there's no significant priority given to the things you'll need the most, like ammo. What ends up happening is that it's way too easy to push the wrong button and find yourself in the wrong menu of items and then struggle to navigate out of it. Doing this while being shot at is a fucking disaster. Equinox and Solstice are both underwhelming. The only advantage that Solstice has is that it's still in an alpha build of an unreleased game, which means that we can forgive a lot of its flaws as being early iterations of something that might work later on. Lastly, I wanted to touch on one minor thing that really irked me when I finally decided to try it out. With Equinox, players can now design their own skins for their ships. That's genuinely a cool thing that I think players wanted, especially people like me who have, shall we say, discerning taste? Well, yesterday I went in and made a skin for my Stormbringer, and let me tell you, it was a miserable experience. I'm already slightly annoyed that you have to use Plex, which is a currency that is more closely tied to paying real-world money, and it's basically only ever used for things like extending your Omega time, getting rich quick, or buying cosmetics. As the last one suggests, it's not really a surprise that custom-made skins cost Plex, and admittedly, I only spent $5 to get more than enough Plex to make this skin, but it still feels a bit like a cash grab. What's really scummy about the way this works is that there doesn't seem to be a way to preview the design using all the colors, even if you don't have them already. If you don't have the colors you need, you can buy them with Plex, but I couldn't even preview them, so I wasn't even sure whether my design would look the way I wanted it to until after I had sunk Plex into buying colors I didn't have, so I could preview it. If there is a way, then the fault is with the shitty UI. As we've seen in Vanguard, this is a trend with CCP. I know I'm being really negative, but it's important to remember that I actually like EVE Online. What bothers me is that CCP seems to put out products that are financially expedient at the expense of quality. CCP is almost always trying to hop on get-rich-quick schemes like the NFT scam or their super secret other game that uses the blockchain for the dumbest use cases you can imagine. I really want them to make stuff that actually works, and if that means I have to fork over a little more each month in subscription costs so I can play the game that isn't a half-baked shit cake, then fucking do it right the first time and stop trying to nickel and dime me. In happier news, congratulations to you, the winner of the Worm Empyrean Outlaw skin. Please let me know what character you want me to contract this skin to, and I'll get it over to you. For everyone else, I'll probably do more giveaways in the future, so be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Fly dangerously, folks.